All. I hope all of you are doing good and welcome to our third session of Economics for Finance. I hope you're comfortable with economics now and that you understand things when you read. Today we will go to the chapter on, the unit on fiscal policy. But before that, I think we have a little bit of backlog yesterday. That should not happen today because as you carry, a person who is watching the video won't get a picture, isn't it? I'd like to finish, one unit each day so that it is complete, right? So we stopped with pricing division yesterday. That is somebody's question. I forgot the name. Somebody's question about minimum support prices, MSP, minimum support prices. Actually, you know how minimum support prices are fixed. It is based on cost of production to ensure stable incomes for agriculturalists. As I said yesterday, there is something like a market failure in economics, in agriculture. So let's take the first case of agriculture. It's not only in agriculture, in many areas, there is minimum support price. For example, what happens when we have a minimum wages act? Okay, let's leave minimum support price for some time and see. We have a minimum wages act. What is the crux of the act? That is, anybody who is employed should not be exploited and who should be given a minimum market wages. Okay, a minimum wage. But it is not market determined. As I said yesterday, if it is market determined, the demand for and supply of laborers will decide the wages. But sometimes what happens is, some people exploit because of the imperfections in the market. That is also a market failure, monopsony. That is, some employers are able to buy work or laborers or the service of laborers at a price lower than what they are actually eligible. So we have the Minimum Wages Act. And so what happens when there is minimum wage act is there? The employers are supposed to pay the prescribed minimum wages. Then higher wages means, employers are reluctant to employ because their profit will be less. And what happens is they will hire less number of laborers. And what will happen to the rest of the laborers? If they're not able to find alternate jobs, it must be because of immobility and particular nature of labor market, they may not be able to find alternate jobs easily, right? And also there is a problem of training and many of them will be very low skilled and unskilled labor. So this will lead to, say for example, unemployment. Okay, the same thing happens when a minimum support price. Let's see what is the market outcome. Actually, it's a huge area of study where, all different types of implications of minimum support taught. But here we have taken just one particular outcome. That is, what is the market outcome? Okay, how will the market behave? Because it will finally you can connect it with market failure. Okay, how will the market behave? Further, there is a diagram in your book. If it is ordinary market, for example, demand for and supply of laborers will decide. This is wages, this is equilibrium wages, this is equilibrium quantity of laborers who are employed. Okay, but if government feels that, suppose minimum wage, suppose the market determined wage is rupees 600. Okay, and government feels that, this is not sufficient and government fixes a price, say for example, 800 rupees per day. 800 rupees per day. So this is not market determined. Who has determined it? It is a government through legislation decided that either the wage will be this or the minimum support price of some commodity will be like this. It is the same principle. So what happens is, our ordinary demand and supply. Okay. The demand at rupees 800 will be only this much. Say for example Q1. What about supply? Supply will be Q2. So what about this Q1, Q2? Say for example, demand is less than, because the basic principle is at higher prices, now more laborers will be willing to offer their work. And so what happens is there is an excess supply of laborers here, excess supply of laborers. If it is minimum support price for wheat, as I said, you cannot take 600 like that. Minimum support price also per ton, per quintal like that. This is what happens. Because as I said yesterday, there is a good incentive system to produce. And more farmers will produce that commodity for which minimum or a price floor is kept by the government. And what happens is, demand might be less than the supply. And then what will we do with this excess supply? If it is laborers, I have already mentioned, they must be finding alternate jobs, which is difficult. So unemployment is one of the market consequences of minimum wages. This is what the capitalist economists say. But that is true also. And for a minimum support price like this, much above the market price, you will find there is excess supply. Let it be wheat, let it be something else. Okay, any agricultural product. And so what should government do? If there is excess supply, naturally market will come into play again, because the agriculturists have to dispose of their product, and many of them will be willing to sell at lower, so willing to supply at lower and lower prices. And finally, the market price will come to stay. So what should the government do? It's not sufficient that they say this is a minimum floor price, okay? They have to also procure, okay, all types of arrangements for procuring, Food Corporation of India, okay, right, procurement of grains and storage in their warehouses. Always government keeps a buffer stock. Buffer stock is, whenever there is a problem, whenever there is a shortage, you can withdraw from the buffer stock. So such buffer stock should be built with the excess supply. That is the principle. When the theory goes like that, but you don't have to study that much. And let's see what is the effect of a price ceiling. And what is a ceiling? Ceiling is, where is the ceiling? Come on, ceiling is the maximum that can be charged. Probably you might not have experienced this in your lifetime, that is, so much of shortages used to occur many years back. Food shortage, sugar shortage, okay. I think very recently the government declared a price ceiling for, I think, onion, right. So let's see how, far back in 1978-79, I remember there was a price ceiling for sugar. And you know what happened? All the sugar went underground. No sugar is available. It is available only in the black market. Okay, that is one consequence of price ceiling. Let's draw a diagram and see how it looks like. So this is the price axis, this is the quantity axis. If market decides the price, say let it be sugar for example, the price, demand and supply, the price of sugar will be as high as 60. So not many people can afford sugar because there is a shortage or something like that. Sugar prices have gone up so substantial that people cannot afford. or it can be an essential medicine, or it can be, there are many restrictions on, charging higher price on lots of medicines, which are very important for patients. So like that, government fixes a price ceiling, okay, like this. This is a price ceiling. Ceiling is the maximum. Okay, nobody will sell sugar more than 30 rupees. So government fixes the price 30 rupees. What will happen? Come on. When this is the demand curve and this is the supply curve, if it is 30 rupees, suppliers are willing to supply only 10 million kilograms. Okay, suppliers, because the price line touching the supply curve, drawing the perpendicular here, quantity is 10 million. But since prices have come down, if price is 60, naturally this will be the quantity that will be sold. That's equilibrium. But because of the interference, because of the intervention, price has substantially fallen and the demand is now 60 million. Okay, 60 million kilograms. And what is this 50 million? 60 is demanded and only 10 million is supplied. So there will be terrible shortage in the market. And when there is shortage, some people who really want sugar, they will simply, their black market will develop and they will simply start giving higher and higher prices, and finally the prices will rise to market price. So this is the case of price ceiling. There are hundreds of other interventions. I am telling you, that is price intervention and their consequence, the deadweight loss, but you don't have to study that much. Okay. Now, the last point is health insurance. The last one is information. You remember the fourth point is imperfect information. That is in our market failure chapter. So 1, 2, 3 we have finished. Now we go to information failure. Have you ever gone to for getting a health insurance? They ask you to fill out your entire health history. What diseases you had earlier, what are your, how much blood pressure you have, all the details. Who is your father, who is your mother, what is your blood group, all the details. Okay, did you ever have accident? All those details they'll ask. Why is it that they're asking? They are seeking information from which they can deduce the probability of your claim. Okay, they can very well establish, okay, what is the nature of this particular person who is buying insurance. Then they also insist on a complete physical examination. Okay, a complete physical examination and get a certificate of the doctor. That is for making decision about the premium that you have to pay. If you have previous history of diseases, they will say such and such and such diseases will not be covered because you will have that disease again, and then insurance company will run into more claims and greater loss. So these are all mechanisms by which information is sought. And I hope it's not given in the book. About deductibles. For example, if you have a health insurance, or if you have a motor insurance, do you think you will get all 100% damage? You will not get. Do you think you will get 100% cost of medical treatment? No, there are some deductibles. They will say, okay, this and this and this will not be covered. In your motor insurance policy, all plastic items, all glass items, all those things will not be covered. That means if they break, we have to bear it. Definitely when there is an accident, the glass will break. Plastic things will break. Okay. And so it is making you pay a part of the claim. Okay, so that you will be more careful. This is for what? To avoid moral hazard. Because if I drive carelessly, or if I go to the hospital when I'm not really sick, some money will go out of my pocket also. So that is why these deductibles are designed to prevent moral hazard. That is to prevent by change in behavior after buying the insurance policy. Okay. So, if individuals are to bear a part of the cost, they will be careful because we don't want to spare any money. That's why we are paying insurance premium. Okay. Then there are hundreds of methods by which information about goods and services is available. We have product reports, we have consumer reports, we have independent reviews. You know, when you go for movies, you know, how do you select whether to go for movies? You just see the review of people. Okay. How do you select certain things online? You see the review. Okay. If the review is bad, we are not going to buy. Okay. That is also one method. Then have you heard about warranties? Yes. Because the company is assuring you for 2 years, 3 years, sometimes LG and all give 10 years warranty. That means the producer is sure, or you can be sure that these number of years, you know, you will get protection from, this breaking down of this instrument. Okay, because the company is responsible. That is one way of assuring and informing you that this good is, this good is of good quality. Then money back policy, right? For example, Reliance Jio will bring a connection to your house 1 month free. If you are not happy, you can give it back. Okay, you will get back your money that you have given. Money back policy is one type of signal they give about the quality of the good, that the service that they are giving. Then franchises, have you heard about it? Franchises, because for example, Pizza Hut. The Pizza Hut is supposed to sell pizza which is of of the same quality they claim at which they sell in maybe in Italy and European countries. That's what we believe, Pizza Hut. Then come to McDonald's. Okay, their particular recipe is the same in US and here also. So such franchises, when given, is an assurance of quality. They are giving us an information. Okay, then McDonald's, that M. Okay, then you can go for inspections. People demonstrate goods and services in your house so that you are informed. There are lots of technical advertisements. Okay, and government has policy of positive advertising and negative advertising. About immunization, they will give you positive advertising, please go for immunization. About cigarette smoking, about throwing waste here and there, they will tell you, okay, negative advertising. All those minus points about doing these things and all possible punishments. Okay. Then Department of Weights and Measures, they will be certifying that this particular weighing balance is of a particular standard, etc. So like that, there are hundreds. So application questions, when you are asked, what you should do is, you should first of all identify what is the issue that is being discussed. And then because you know the theory, right, you know the theory well, then you will be able to answer. Okay. Now we go to the next unit, that is fiscal policy. A little bit of taste of fiscal policy you had in unit 2 of chapter 1, that is Keynesian theory. Okay, you have done the expenditure multiplier, the government expenditure multiplier. Okay, then you also have done it in chapter 2, that is fiscal functions. Okay, fiscal functions, stabilization function, you remember. So this is an extended version of all that you have studied in chapter 1, unit 2 and chapter 2, unit 1. I hope you have a basic understanding of all these. Otherwise, understanding this should be slightly difficult. Okay, so I presume that you have done these lessons properly. But at any point, I will make sure that I repeat and I cover more than what is given in the textbook, so that you need not ask me questions. Okay, right? I think you know where this word fiscal comes from. The word fiscal comes from, there are many root words for that. Fisc, that is English treasury. Okay, English treasury, UK. Fiscal, fiscus, many words are associated. From that comes the word fiscal. You already know that fiscal is connected with the purse of the government. You know what is it in our purse? It's our purse is earlier days our purse is supposed to contain money and coins. Now we may be having lots of credit card, debit card, and all those things. But a purse or a wallet is associated with. So fisc is the purse of the government, or the exchequer, or the treasury, whatever it is. The purse of the government, right? What is it actually that is happening to the purse? Money comes into the purse, money goes out of the purse. And if what the money comes is less than the money that goes out, people borrow. So it is exactly like individuals. Government's purse, or government has income, government has expenditure. Unlike individuals, okay, borrowing is not very good for individuals if it is not for productive purpose. For the government also it is like that. Government borrowing keeps on going all through the years because government is involved in doing multiple activities. And please remember, you cannot compare the individual's income and expenditure with government income and expenditure because of the amazing size of the expenditure and the income. Right? Managing an economy is a huge task. Okay, it is, managing a house itself is a huge task. Then you can understand managing a house, managing an economy, how difficult it will be. So mostly in this chapter, we will be concentrating on government policy for stabilization, because all the others, since you have done government intervention for redistribution, all these are a little bit okay for you. But stabilization is an area where a little bit of technicalities are involved. So please, I would like you to keep writing down, because once you write down, you get the connection, okay? And you know where that link is missing, which is that area you have not understood. So what is government policy for stabilization? Before we go to the name stabilization, let me tell you what is the need for stabilization. What is the meaning of stable? Stabilize, you have done it in fiscal functions. Instability in an economy. You remember, no economy moves like this. Linear growth. No economy has linear growth. What are we experiencing now? We are experiencing a downward trend. I hope you have done this earlier. Come on. We are somewhere here, okay? A declining path. Sometimes the times are so bad that economic activities will be at the lowest. So with this, I will again come to that, and this is what is known as instability. Okay, I'll come to that once more. Instability. And mostly stabilization will be the topic of discussion for us. And government policies for stabilization, for example, government policies for stabilization is divided into two: monetary policy and fiscal policy. Monetary policy we will learn in chapter 3, where what they do is they control the monetary authority on behalf of the government, will control the supply of money and the interest rates. Okay. In fiscal policy, as I told you, it is concerned with the purse of the government. So in fiscal policy, government is trying to make policy based on taxation, expenditure and borrowing. Okay. Taxation, expenditure and borrowing. So this is the gist of government policy for stabilization purposes, for stabilization. Okay, so this is the framework we will be learning as government policy for stabilization. So for the time being, we'll start with fiscal policy and then we will go to the more complex thing, that's monetary policy. Then, how can a government influence the economy? You know what is meaning of influence? That is, try to change, alter the behavior, give proper incentives. So how can the government influence the economy? Number one, now this part is left, okay? We will not be dealing it now. We will be dealing only with fiscal policy. Now you might find it slightly abstract, but this is very important. I have given this particular sentence, I have given somewhere in the text, you find out where it is. Okay, end of one paragraph, right? Level of tax. What is the meaning of level of tax? Whether it is 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. Okay, level of tax. Type of tax. For example, whether you should have estate duty, whether you should have expenditure tax, whether you should have income tax, or whether income should be taxed, whether expenditure should be taxed, whether services should be taxed. I can remember times when services were not taxed. There was a time when online transaction was not taxed, isn't it? So level is, how much, and type is what are the things to be taxed. Now with your government intervention knowledge background, government will tax certain kinds and set of goods and services and people, and government will not tax some other set of people. Okay, so level, type of taxes. So that is over. Okay, level and type of taxes. Level and type of tax. Then next one is expenditure, which is the same as spending. I hope you are with me. Taxes, level of taxes, type of taxes, right? Secondly, coming to expenditure, this is the crux of what we are going to do today. Coming to expenditure, extent of expenditure, extent. How much should the government spend? And also the composition of spending. Composition. How is composition means this? That is, how should it be composed of? Should it be more for war? Okay. North Korea might decide, okay, government expenditure should be like this. More on war and war-related commodities. Okay. A generous government which is very friendly with, social welfare, they will try to spend a lot of money on social welfare. So, level of spending, extent of spending and composition, how it should be composed of. That is about expenditure. And borrowing. Again, the degree of borrowing, how much to borrow. Should we borrow at all? If at all we are borrowing, how much to borrow? And how the form of borrowing. From whom? How will you borrow? From whom will you borrow? Will you borrow internally? Will you borrow externally? Or will you print currency? Okay. All these. Actually, this is the way, this is the crux of fiscal policy. And that is what we are going to explain now. Now, we have heard about a subject. Economics has more than 100 branches, In that, one is public finance. And this chapter, that's all dealing with the theory of taxation, theory of public expenditure, what is the welfare, social contract, all those theories together is public finance. Public finance gets transformed into fiscal policy when we consider the budget. Okay, we consider. So government acts through its budget. Okay. Now, before we go, we'll take a little bit of diversion and we'll come to the topic now. You heard about, when you listen to news, etc. You heard a word, in US, it is fiscal austerity. Austerity means strictness. Okay, fiscal austerity. What will be fiscal austerity? That is spending less. The government is spending less. And fiscal stimulus, quantitative easing, you remember? Okay, what is fiscal stimulus? Spending more. So sometimes governments spend less. They go for fiscal austerity, austerity, that is very strict spending. Sometimes they go for, lavish spending. That is a fiscal stimulus. If we have watched, what is going on in the economy during the COVID period, you can see on the government, that is the finance minister coming over and announcing so many stimulus packages. Right? The government is spending a lot of money. They are finding money somewhere and spending a lot of money. Okay. Now we have gone for fiscal stimulus. Sometimes it will be strictness. And if you are asked in an interview, what is the best fiscal policy? Austerity or stimulus? Your answer is, there is no common answer for that. There is no single answer for that. It depends. The answer is that it depends. It depends on the condition of the economy. If the economy is, earlier I do, if the economy is facing a downturn, then definitely it should be, stimulus. If the economy is having a contraction, it should be stimulus. Okay? Then, if the economy is highly heated up, that is, all economic activities are at the height, production is very high, incomes are high. Naturally, when production is high, you should be able to relate it in real terms. When production is high, profits will be high, incomes will be high, employment of land, labor, capital, organization, everything will be very high. When employment is high, they get rent, wages, interest and profit, returns on investment for people, and people who are working, they will get wages. Land will get rent. In economics, rent is not for a building. Okay. It is for a building is capital in economics. Okay. They get rent for land, and so boom. We call it boom. Okay. Boom is the highest level of economic activity. Prices are high. The economy is so much heated up that government wants to reduce. The prices are spiraling. It is going on. Okay. And so now we are moving from microeconomic point of view of governmental intervention. What is microeconomic? Dealing with particular sectors and particular activities. That is this resource allocation is actually. Remember, the production possibility curve is a lesson which you have done in your microeconomics. Okay. And so it is definitely not an aggregate economic activity. For example, government intervention on minimum wages is a microeconomic activity. Government intervention for example, what we studied yesterday is about coal industry and mine industry and mining, making pollution and trying to control the mining is microeconomic. Okay, because this is a doubt most of the students ask. Then this resource allocation, isn't it something done by the government? Then isn't it macro? No, it's not macroeconomics. So now today we are going from microeconomics to aggregate. That's going back to chapter 1, unit 2. And what are the aggregate economic activity of government? You know, there is aggregate expenditure. You remember? Aggregate expenditure, which is part of C plus I plus G, X plus X minus M. Okay, so G is very important. Then government is taxing. Then government is incurring debt, DBT, debt and deficit. What is a deficit? I told you, when your money is not sufficient, you borrow. Government is incurring deficit. And all these activities of government, that is getting income, spending money, then borrowing money, there is one more very, very important thing that government does. Government does transfer payment. What is this transfer payment? Government also gives transfer payment. A transfer payment is a payment given without getting anything in return. For example, a pension is a transfer payment. All social security measures are transfer payment because they don't get anything in return. If a government employee works, the government gets something in return. But if pension is given, government does not get any work done by these pensioners. It is social security. What is social security? Individuals who cannot find security on their own in a welfare state, the society gives security. That is the meaning of social security. And so all these transfer payments are without any return, and it is for ensuring social welfare and social security. And I think you know about Adam Smith. Your reference to Adam Smith is done in Keynesian chapter and also in Fiscal Function. Adam Smith was the advocate of laissez-faire. Leave everything to the market except those three things which he studied in the last paragraph on page 2 in Fiscal Functions. Right. He believed that economy will function perfect. And I am introducing now macroeconomics. He believed that, please note it, economy will always tend towards full employment equilibrium. Full employment equilibrium. Two things I mentioned. It is equilibrium. What is equilibrium? You have done in Keynesian theory. This is equilibrium. That is, this is a 45-degree line. This is aggregate supply. That is the total output of the economy. Right? Our consumption function and everything, okay? Where AD is equal to AS. There is equilibrium. But all these diagrams are unimportant. The theory behind it is more important. Okay. And where does this take place? This is taking place at full employment. These diagrams are not there in Adam Smith's time. These diagrams are introduced by Keynes. But you can always discuss Adam Smith using this diagram. Adam Smith always believed there will be, this is short run, Adam Smith is long run. Okay, Adam Smith did not distinguish between short run and long run. He said, okay, there will be always full employment in the economy. And when there is full employment, stability of prices, there is no problem. And what is full employment? Please understand, that is a very badly understood, that is a very mistakenly understood term. Full employment does not mean if there are 1,000 people or 100 lakhs people in a country, all 100 lakhs people are employed and doing work. No, it's not that. It only means that there is no unemployment created due to trade cycles, that is cyclical changes in economic activity. Okay. It is called natural rate of unemployment. That's why in your book many times the word natural rate comes. Natural rate of unemployment is whenever there is full employment, there is some unemployment. What are unemployment? There can be structural unemployment because the structure of the economy is changing. There can be frictional unemployment because people keep changing jobs. Okay, definitely. And there can be voluntary unemployment. That is, some people do not like to work. They don't want to work. And so, all these people are unemployed, but that is natural phenomenon. No country can have all people employed all the time. So, when you say there is full employment, what we mean is all those natural rate of unemployment, what I mentioned now, that is cyclical unemployment, that is structural unemployment, frictional unemployment. You know what is frictional unemployment? Temporarily people change their jobs and they are searching for jobs. Okay, for example, one person returned from Kuwait and he is searching for a job now. He is frictionally unemployed. Okay, structurally unemployed. Okay, because of certain changes, structure of the economy is changing from agrarian to industrial. All that is theory you can read because we don't have time. Right? There is no cyclical unemployment. Due to recession, there is no unemployment. That is the meaning of full employment. So economy is always at full employment. Okay. Now suppose any time there is unemployed people, please understand this very important point. Suppose Adam Smith is asked, suppose there is any time unemployment, what will happen? Naturally, these people are willing to work at lower wages. Okay? And suppliers are willing to supply things at lower prices. That is what is known as price wage flexibility. Prices and wages will come down because those people who are unemployed, they are willing to work at lower wages. Goods that cannot be sold, supplies, it will be sold at lower prices. And when you get laborers to work at lower wages, you will employ more people and so there is no unemployment. This was Adam Smith's theory. So full employment equilibrium was till 1930s. Keynes came in 1930s, with his general theory, 1936. Till that time, this was the belief of economists. So maybe after a generation, all these theories are wrong, people will say. They did not know. Right? And he believed in laissez-faire. Let's wait and see. The economy will correct by itself. So, did it really happen during Great Depression? Then came the Great Depression. There was extreme form of recession. Nobody knew what to do. And Keynes is the person who said, okay, you depend on government. Now, this is the role of government. It is for the government to solve this problem by increasing it is demand deficient recession. I'll tell you in one or two sentences, demand deficient recession, what it is. For example, because I don't have money, for some reason I lost my job, if I don't have money, will I buy goods and services? No. Of the people, now it is very easy to understand during this COVID period, okay. Suppose 30% of the people lose their job, what will happen? We will not go to the shop to buy, not because of fear of COVID, but because we don't have money in our pockets. Okay, we don't buy things. Then what will happen? The shopkeeper has displayed all things, he cannot sell it, he will not order to the factory or to the producer. He will stop ordering. The producer gets the signal, okay, he is trying to sell off whatever is there, he will not produce further. Which means if the producer is not producing, he will tell his employees, go home and sit. I cannot pay you wages. This is exactly what is happening now. Okay. And then those people again are added to 30%. Now it is 40% unemployment. 40% people don't have money in their pocket. They have money only for essential commodities. Okay. What will happen? Again this cycle will repeat it. And finally it becomes depression. So that is why we have four phases of a trade cycle. That is the trough, recovery, boom, recession. Okay. It is the lowest point of economic activity. Then there is a recovery like this. Then a stage comes, when economic activities are at its highest, it is peak, but this peak cannot continue for long. There will be a recession. Okay. Now this drastic, how many years it will come, all that we cannot predict. Now what is the duty of fiscal policy? That is, government can intervene at this stage so that the economy does not go to a trough. Okay. If the government is not intervening at this stage, what will happen? The economy will automatically move to the stage which is very dangerous. Okay. Very dangerous. Lots of hardships will come for people, and so it is for the government to intervene in the market, and that is what is fiscal policy of stabilization. Okay, before 1930, nothing doing, government should be an onlooker, that is what the economists said. But after 1930 and after the 2008 crisis, you remember 1999 crisis for the Asian countries, and 2008 crisis for US and other developed countries, we understood there is a very positive role for the government to play. And what is fiscal policy? We said these are the things that government do, right? Government is, controlling the level and type, extent and nature of expenditure, and how much and form of borrowing. So, government, and also transfer payment. Okay. So, government is manipulating. Okay. Manipulating. What is manipulating? Artificially changing these functions of the government in order to positively influence the economy. So, these are tools in the hands of the government. Okay, and the government will manipulate it. For example, if I have seen some students not studying properly, okay, the father of such a child will say, your pocket money will be reduced. And so, pocket money is being manipulated to attain the desired objective. So, like that, government will manipulate all these areas in order to influence the economy, in order to bring in stability. Okay, so the government is using its treasury, its finances. Actually, it is finances, isn't it? Tax, expenditure, borrowing, transfer payment. It's government finances to achieve macroeconomic goal. This time I did not say stabilization alone. There are many macroeconomic goals. That is growth, stability, full employment, equality in the distribution of income. So there are many macroeconomic objectives. And so government is using its treasury or its finances or its taxation, its public expenditure, borrowing programs, transfer payment program to produce desirable effects on national income. What is desirable effects? If it is recession, what is desirable effect? Stop the recession here. And what is expected of the government is, you cannot have trade cycle. You cannot say that trade cycles will not occur. Trade cycles will occur. Then we can only decrease the severity of the trade cycle. So the suffering of people will be less. So stability does not mean 100% stability. Okay. And that is fiscal policy. And what are the main objectives? It's given in your book left hand side of the page. One is, maintenance of full employment. As I said, maintenance of full employment. Please keep a note of all these things. Maybe sometime later you will teach economics. Okay, right. Maintenance of full employment. There is no unemployment due to trade cycles. Whatever unemployment is, every country will have 4 to 5% of unemployment. That is natural rate of unemployment. So any unemployment is unavoidable. It is natural rate of unemployment. But there is no cyclical unemployment because of, demand deficiency. Because of decline in aggregate demand, there should be no demand deficient unemployment. Economic growth. Okay. economic growth. Then we are stressing on supply side. Demand side is people's desire to buy goods and services. Supply side is, an economy is able to supply more if infrastructure is better. Okay, today we saw a corridor being opened, not a corridor, that is a tunnel being opened. That is infrastructure. A highway being opened, that is infrastructure. New railway line constructed. All these will increase the growth prospects. That is increase the supply side. That is a supply side activity. Then the next one is, so I said two things there, for example, full employment. Okay. Then economic growth. Third one is stabilization or stability. Equality of distribution. Okay, so different countries have different objectives. These are the usual objectives. Okay, different countries have different, depends upon their economy. For example, the oil-rich countries, their policy will be what? The oil prices are fluctuating, and so move according to the cyclical changes in the oil prices. Okay, find money to solve the problem when prices are declining. So each country will have its own. But this is the general fiscal policy objective. But please understand, when I said fiscal policy, you would have got an idea that all fiscal policy is deliberate manipulation. There are two classes of fiscal policy. Okay, that is, there are two types of fiscal policy. It's given in your book. Two types of fiscal policy usually. One is non-discretionary. That is, the difference between the meaning of it. Non-discretionary. No discretion of government is there in this. Second is discretionary. Here, the government's role is positive. That is, government is deliberately choosing to do something, right? Now, non-discretionary is, it does not involve any choice of government for a particular policy, but it is certain inbuilt. I'll discuss. It is called automatic stabilizers. Automatic stabilizers. You have seen so many electronic stabilizers. What is the function of a stabilizer? Making something stable. And you don't have to go and look every time in front of your television or in front of your computer whether this stabilizes. It's automatic. It will do it automatically. Like that, in an economy also, there are many automatic stabilizers. For example, when trade cycles occur, ups and downs occur, when recession and inflation occur, here it is inflation, here it is recession, here it is depression. These are the other words, okay? There are some structural features of the government's structural features. You know what is a structural feature? That is, sometimes you build buildings with, that structure itself allows fresh air and good, it is soundproof, or it is, light is coming in. So like that, the structure of the taxation system and the structure of the spending system, always be here in your brain, okay? The structure of tax, the structure of spending is framed in such a way, that is, it is framed, it is made in such a way that, this will automatically get stabilized. That is what is known as, usually asked question, that is what is known as auto. That is, the structural features of finances of government is framed in such a way that it will cause this stabilization automatically. Government does not have to. You need not need any legislation. For example, for increasing taxes, you need some ordinance at least, isn't it? And so you don't need any intervention from the government. Government can simply say, but it will automatically happen. Suppose these are very strong. Non-discretionary is very strong. There is no need for discretionary. But usually, Non-discretionary is not that strong. That's why government has to go for discretionary. So as I said, it is built into the government budget. Okay, they do not require any legislative action. They offset fluctuations. Okay, they offset fluctuations. That is, when it is high, it is brought down. When economic activity is low, it is brought up. Okay, and so what are the best known automatic stabilizers? This is something you very well know, that is progressive taxes of personal income. What is progressive taxes? I don't have to teach you, because as CS students, you know 100 times more than me what is progressive taxes. Okay, progressive taxes, then progressive corporate taxes. Corporate taxes, you know what is corporate taxes? Make it progressive for income levels. High income level companies will pay a high rate of taxes. Then transfer payments. Taxes and transfer payments. Already you know, unemployment benefits, pension. Actually, these transfer payments also include all types of unemployment benefits that governments give. Let's see how it works. Most taxes are framed in such a way that it automatically moves up and down with economic growth. Up with economic growth and down with recession, isn't it? For example, it runs like a story like this. Suppose there is very high level of economic activity. Your income will be high, you pay taxes at a high rate. Okay? That is, earlier when your economy was not doing good, you are paying 10%. Now you are paying 30% because your income is so high. Now you are paying 30%. So this is progressive. Corporates also. Okay? When growth is very high, okay, they get very high profit, reported profit, they pay 40%, otherwise they pay only 20%. Clear? Not flat 20%, right? So what happens? Okay, for example, leave alone the corporates also we can consider. What happens when there is a recession? First, let us see what happens when there is a recession. Recession is like this. What happens? Your income falls, okay? Your income falls and you automatically you fall into this, or you fall into 0% tax. Clear? Here, a substantial portion of your disposable income is taken away, but when your income is less, you pay only less taxes, or you don't pay taxes at all. So what happens to your disposable income? Your disposable income is not very much affected because of this tax structure. That is, money in your pocket is not at all affected. And you know the theory of recession because you have already done it in Keynesian theory. Recession is occurring, as I said earlier, when you don't have money in your pocket to buy goods and services and demand is deficient. Aggregate, I don't spend, you don't spend, everybody don't spend, means aggregate demand is less. Then production is less, unemployment is there, and there is an under full employment equilibrium. Production is less. People are buying all that is produced, but production is not to the extent of full employment. That is a problem. Okay. And so here what happens is my disposable income more or less remains stable. So I spend, okay, when I spend, okay, recession, the severity of the recession, otherwise it would have gone like this. Now the severity of recession is reduced because I can spend more or less the same amount. Industries also, if incomes are less, okay, their profit is less, which means they will move down from this to this level, and what happens is they have, reserves, more reserves, more or less the same reserves to invest, right? So that is an automatic stabilizer. Okay. Then comes, how is this transfer? During inflation, what is the opposite? During inflation, I have lots of money, so a substantial part of my income is taken away from me, which means my propensity to spend, run and buy things will be reduced because government takes away 30% of my money as taxes. So my disposable income is more or less stable because of the structure. Here also, in investment demand, if the company is making so much of profit, a good portion of it is taken away by the government. So what happens is, overheating of the economy is taking place, their investment, they don't have much money to invest. And so that investment and consumption desire of people can be controlled by the inbuilt mechanism. Okay. And what will happen, for example, tax receipts, I'll repeat it, tax receipts increase as GDP increases. Tax increases as GDP increases. Tax decreases as GDP decreases. Built-in mechanism. It automatically comes. Nobody has to do anything. You just structure the taxes, think properly. You consult proper people and make this graduated, levels of, the progressive rates of taxation. It's the graduated level. That is graduated. Okay. Then what about transfer payments? When there is a recession, remember we are studying Western economics, but in India also it's practical. So, when real GDP falls, my employment, overall employment is less, people will go and file for social security and government will give money to people. This is transfer payment, okay? From the government exchequer, people will be paid, and this is putting more money into the pockets of people when there is recession and unemployment. Their propensity to consume remains the same. You can retain the effective demand as it is. Okay, transfer payment. So, transfer payments, come on, decrease. What is the opposite of it? This is increase because it's time for a break. Okay, transfer payments increase during recession when there is real GDP is declining, employment is declining. These people go and file, applications for transfer payments, unemployment benefit. They get unemployment benefit. So they go to the market and buy apple, food, bread, all those things. Effective demand remains same. The same is the case with businesses. The opposite is the case. When GDP is very high, real GDP is very high, activities are very high, employment is very high, income is very high, people have a lot of money, okay, then they cannot go to the government. Government will cut their transfer payment, okay, no transfer payment will come. So government expenditure reduces, money in the hands of the people automatically, and they are taxed also heavily. So your disposable income, the inbuilt disposable income structure remains the same and automatical step. Okay, but remember, recession or inflation, it is not fully corrected by this. What we can expect is only, as I drew earlier, okay, we can only have a milder version using this automatic stabilizers. Okay, you can now take a break. It is 3 minutes past 7, and you can take a break and later come back after 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'll look for the questions. Okay, thank you. Take a break, please. after 5 minutes. It is 8 past 7, right? Come on. I have some beautiful doubts that are coming. I'm happy you are asking these doubts. Okay. Good evening from Mumbai. Okay. Vaishnavi, Vijay. Okay, Vijay. Vaishnavi, yes, good evening. Now, Janvi, the question is good. Anyway, I'm happy you are. I'm happy you are. Equation, right? An economy is characterized by the following equation. But I'm sorry, it does not come under this chapter, and also we don't have time to divert, right? I can personally give you later if you want. I can tell you some criterion. For example, 0.9 YD. Here, YD is disposable income. Disposable income is income after paying taxes. Investment I is 10, government expenditure, okay. Imports is M, and find equilibrium income and the trade balance. Equilibrium income is our simple usual formula you apply. Trade balance is export minus import. You will get export minus import figures. Definitely easily you can do. So anyway, at this point I cannot go to that because the entire chapter is left for me to teach. I'm sorry, I can personally give you a mail if you want. Okay. Ma'am, in case of demerit goods, there's a very good question over here. In case of demerit goods, MPB is affected. Yes, marginal private benefit is affected because it's not marginal private benefit affected. That is, since there is a negative externality, you can go to page, in the case of demerit good, yes. Marginal social benefit, page number 2.60, marginal social benefit is lower. It shows that there is a negative consumption externality, considering that it is alcohol. Now, yes, I agree. But in the case of merit goods, please note, merit good is a good like education, which left to the market will not be sufficiently produced. Okay, sufficiently produced. So the cost to the society is lower than the private cost. And please remember, for each one you can draw based on the assumptions. For example, for merit good also you can, if there is positive externality in consumption, okay, you can draw a curve like that. For each of these you can draw under an assumption, but it should be supported by theory. If there is a negative externality, I have sent that extra notes. If there is a negative externality in production, it is marginal social cost is higher than marginal private cost. If there is a positive externality, marginal private cost is higher than marginal social cost. As I told you, there are 30 diagrams for this, okay. But we are taking very, very specific things, that's all. You can also do the opposite diagram, absolutely no problem. Under the assumption of negative externality, positive externality in consumption, you can draw the diagram, absolutely no problem. Then slight differences will be there in the shading area, that's all. Please remember, always the dead weight loss triangle should go and end face at optimal. Then you will not make a mistake at all. Okay, right. So we have picked and chosen certain examples from all those, it's huge analysis. That's why doubt is coming. Okay. Okay, MNDRA. Yes, minimum wage, change minimum wage system. Not exactly. Okay. Because if I divert now, I'm sorry, I don't have time. Okay. Excess supply is Q2 in case of MSP, which is the question that you are asking. Christian, excess supply. Yes. Excess supply, yes. Excess supply in the case of minimum support price. Let me check the diagram. We can check the diagram in your book. I will put so many, whatever notation I want I will put, but in your book it is minimum support price. Yes, if you have a minimum support price, excess supply is, yes, Q1, Q2. Yes, Q1, Q2 is, because that which touches the supply curve is Q2, but demand is only Q1. So there is excess supply, or if it is wages, there is unemployment. Then there is a very good question, Karthik. At which stage of economy is now? There is a difference of opinion among economists themselves at which stage we are. Some people say we are going into recession. But last should be cutting the policy rates. But last Monetary Policy Committee did not cut the rates. We are coming to monetary policy, then you will understand. Because we are having tendencies of inflation. Actually, unemployment, low production, everything is there. But we are also having tendency for inflation. That's why the rate cut did not take place. So, I'm not a big, data analyst. But still, you can smell from the economy. We are going to have some type of stagnation and inflation together. Stagflation. But government is acting. If COVID is getting over, probably we will improve. It's all uncertainty. We cannot pinpoint and say where we are, but we have definitely all the deficient demand and all problems are there. Along with that, inflation is also there. Okay, we are smelling inflation as well. And so the economy should come, and anyway, there is nothing like you can inflation. This is because this is a very particular stage in the history. Maybe many new economic theories will come up after the COVID-19. Okay, we do not know, right? Because Great Depression gave you lots of new economic theory. Keynesian theory itself is the result of Great Depression. So there could be more theories coming up. Okay, right? Shall we go back to the class? Anyway, I'm happy you are listening and asking question. Okay, then what did Keynes say? Come on, when the problem is severe, you cannot depend upon discretionary fiscal policy alone. Then Keynes believed in the great power of fiscal policy, government intervention. Keynes was actually talking about against classical economists who said, the government can simply stand like this and watch the economy, it will correct itself, laissez-faire. Keynes said, nothing doing, it will not happen. Economy will not be in full employment. Economy will be in underemployment, equilibrium, unemployment. There will be equilibrium and unemployment. What is equilibrium? Equilibrium is a state where whatever is produced, that is aggregate supply, is demanded. But if the aggregate supply is less, and that will be demanded, it is less than full employment level. Okay, then Keynes said full employment is the best. People will be very unhappy if they are unemployed. Okay, it is instability will come again. And so the overarching role of government is what is meant by Keynesian theory. Okay, so discretionary policy. So far we are talking about automatic stabilizer. Earlier I said, why is discretionary? What is the argument for you that government can definitely influence? Earlier, in the first chapter you studied national income calculation, isn't it? Then you said it is C plus I plus G plus NX, isn't it? So like that, what is this G? See, government is so huge, right? So government expenditure G, government can directly change this expenditure of the government. And it will have a massive influence on the economy because C plus I plus G, if one component G is changed, definitely it is going to have a very important effect on economy. It is not only that G is changed, G can be increased, G can be reduced. G stands for government expenditure. Okay. Then government can impact your consumption, isn't it? Government can decide, give you incentive. I told you earlier, taxation government can direct your spending. Government can definitely influence your spending on consumption. How does government influence your spending on consumption? Your disposable income. Your disposable income is what you have after paying taxes. Okay. Your disposable income is what you have after paying taxes. You have paid 10 rupee taxes, you have 90 rupees, this is disposable income. Suppose government increases the tax to 30 rupees because you are found spending too much money. Okay, that is your aggregate demand is so high. Government wants to reduce your expenditure, reduce the expenditure of people. Okay, what will they do? They will increase the tax. Now your disposable income is only 70 rupees. Your pocket is less heavy and you will think twice before you decide going to an amusement park. You will think 3 times before you go on a foreign tour. Okay, right, this may let it be 70,000 or like that. Okay, and what happens is by government's action on taxation and transfer payments and government expenditure, we are coming to that in detail. Okay, right, government can deliberately manipulate the taxation. This is manipulating the taxes. Why is that the government is manipulating the taxes? Because the government wants to take away money. Then I will tell the rule, you can write it down. During inflation, people have employment, economic activity is at its highest, lots of money in the pockets of people and corporates. Whenever money is given in the pockets, money reaches the pockets of people. Now, when I say pockets, don't think that they put it in the pocket, okay? When people have money, they spend. So aggregate demand is shooting up. What should be the fiscal policy? Take away money from the pockets of people through taxation. So their disposable income reduces, and if the disposable income reduces, their demand reduces, and aggregate. My demand reduces, your demand reduces, everybody's demand reduces, aggregate demand comes down. That is during inflation. During recession, demand, people don't have much money with them, so they don't spend, aggregate demand is affected, and so what is to be done? Come on, what is to be done? Put more money into the pockets of people. How can government put more money into the pockets of people? That is reduce the taxes. Okay, earlier you are paying 10 rupees, now government says, okay, you pay only 2 rupees. Clear? Put more money into your pocket by decreasing the taxes. The same is the case with public expenditure. If public expenditure is more, if government is involving in all types of construction work, capital intensive work and all types of activities, more money is injected into circulation. Okay, people get more money in their hands, so people spend when they get. So during inflation, government should reduce its expenditure so that government is not pumping money into the economy. Okay, during recession, what should the government do? The problem is people don't have demand because they don't have money in their pockets. So make all possible activities, do all possible activities, keep spending money. Let the government expenditure increase. What will happen? People will have more money in their pockets, they will spend and demand will pull up. Okay, so that is fiscal policy. We will slightly go. Now, what is expansionary fiscal policy? I have already mentioned during recession, an increase in government purchase, decrease in taxes, okay, increase in government purchases. So this is a criterion you have to apply. During recession, people have less money, and so we need an expansionary fiscal policy. Expand the money, expand the availability of income for people. And so during recession, you go for an expansionary fiscal policy. Expansionary fiscal policy is injecting more money into the hands of people. So reduce taxes, increase public expenditure. And what is objective? Increasing aggregate demand. Increasing aggregate demand means people will buy goods and services, more employment, more income, more output, more national income. Right. Now, expansionary fiscal policy stimulates the economy. Okay. Stimulate the economy, and this stimulation happens when unemployment is greater than natural level. As I said, a natural level of unemployment. Okay. When unemployment is greater than, sorry, did I say less than? Unemployment is greater than natural level. Suppose for a country, natural level of unemployment is 5%. Okay, 5% people don't want to work, 5% people are frictionally unemployed. Suppose unemployment rate is 25%. What does it mean? It is not natural rate. It is due to cyclical unemployment. So you want to stimulate the economy. Whenever cyclical unemployment is there, aggregate production is less, unemployment equilibrium. Okay, aggregate production is less than full employment production. How can you make it full employment production? By putting more money into the pockets of people, right? Expansionary fiscal policy, then people will, aggregate expenditure will increase. Aggregate expenditure increase means the diagram I drew, the aggregate expenditure curve will go up, and automatically it will, and not automatically, because of government action, it will lead to full employment. You will come across a word pump priming in your book. Pump priming. Please note, pump priming is not a very popular thing these days. Okay, in 1970s, no, it stopped during Second World War time. Pump priming is this, that is, putting a very heavy dose of public expenditure. You find that the economy is in recession, then government will come in. Okay, this is government will come in, and a large dose. Okay, suppose this is an injection needle. Imagine it is an injection needle. A large dose of government investment. Okay, a large dose of government investment. Lots of money is invested, a one-time investment. It is like priming the pump. You know, the earlier diesel engines had to be primed, you know. I mean, turn, then it automatically start. Like that, if the economy is given a huge booster dose like this, the economy will automatically it will go. It's like an aircraft taking off. That is pump priming. But pump priming is very unpopular because inflationary it is. Okay, prices tend to rise, and that is pump priming. And what is compensatory spending? Whenever private investment and private consumption expenditure or the private component of the aggregate demand is less, government will compensate by spending. Okay, government finds private spending is less, then government will get in and start spending, and that is compensatory spending. Okay, so government expenditure is an instrument of, okay, now we go to instruments of fiscal policy that's given in your book. What are the instruments of fiscal policy? There are three or four sections it is given. Now we go to instruments of, okay, what are the instruments? We have already discussed it. Government expenditure is an instrument. Government spends more when there is a downward movement or when there is a recessionary trend. Government expenditure will compensate for lack of aggregate demand from the people or from the private sector. Okay, government has three types of expenditure: current expenditure, capital expenditure. You know, being chartered accountancy students, you know what is a current expenditure day to day. Then capital expenditure And there is a very big third component known as transfer payments. Transfer payments. Without getting anything returned come. So government will manipulate these three types of expenditure on the part. Okay. So when government spends, say for example, when government construct a huge 1,500 kilometer length highway, it will put a lot of money in the hands of people, suppliers of materials, okay, cement, and all the necessary things for the highway, for building bridges, okay. Lots of laborers are employed, so money is put into the hands of the people. And it has an indirect effect. This is directly putting money into the hands of the people. You know, these contractors will go to the treasury, collect money, distribute it to the laborers, the suppliers, the managers, and so on. These people in turn go and spend, it becomes somebody else's income. They spend in turn, it becomes somebody else's income. I am talking about investment multiplier or spending multiplier, which is the same as spending multiplier. You have already done multiplier in the second unit. Okay, so it is not that is how much money is actually coming into the economy is not equal. Suppose the government is spending 500 million. It is not 500 million. That is income change that is going to take place. It is multiplier time. Suppose the multiplier is 4 with a given 1 divided by 1 minus MPC or 1 by MPS. Please learn all that. I cannot repeat it because you have already done that. Okay. Right? K delta I, isn't it? Okay. K delta I. So, multiplier effect 500 into 4, 2000 million will be the expansion in income. Okay. And so, this expansion in income will definitely go to the pockets of people. And now we know secondary employment, tertiary employment, throughout, shops will come up when the construction is going on. Coffee suppliers will come, transport companies will transport cement, bricks and all those things for the construction of the highway. So primary employment, secondary employment induce a lot of expenditure and so multiplier effect. Suppose the government decrease spending, what will happen? The government decides, okay, spending less money in the economy. Less money in the economy means less money in the hands of people. Less money in the hands of people means less demand. Less demand means, come on, the aggregate demand falls. When aggregate demand falls, prices fall, inflation is lower. Tax also, we have already explained, that is you increase the rate of taxes and decide what is the size of your disposable income. People have less money to spend when taxes are high. Less money to spend means less demand. Less demand means lower will be the inflation. Then there is recession. Reduce the tax rate. Your disposable income is more. You have more money to spend because of a tax cut. More money means more demand. Please write it down. More money in your pocket. This is only criterion you have to apply. Okay. More money. What is expansionary? What is contractionary? All these jargons are okay. Explain only one thing. If there is a tax cut, gives more disposable income to the people, more money in the pockets of the people, more they go to shop to buy, more the demand, more will be the orders, more will be the production, more will be the employment, more will be the jobs, circular effects. Okay. And so, if government increases spending, decreases spending, increases spending during recession, decrease the spending during inflation. So, during inflation, what should be the policy? Put less money into the pockets of people. During recession, what should be the policy? Put more money. These two sentences you remember. your whole entire corporate taxes, the structure of personal taxes, the structure of corporate taxes should be framed is like that. Okay. During inflation, have new taxes. During inflation, increase the existing rate of taxation. Okay. Wipe off the excess purchasing power. Wipe off the excess money from your hands. Okay. And public debt is also an instrument. Okay. Public debt, that is, government keeps on borrowing money. Government is a huge entity, right? Billions and billions government is borrowing. And this is also an instrument. Okay, if government borrows money from all of us and from banks and other financial institutions, okay, governments will sell bonds, long-term bonds, treasury bills to these banks, okay, treasury bills and all types of national savings certificate, all these we people buy. Then that is borrowing by the government. Our money will go to the government and those pieces of paper or dematerialized things will remain with us. Okay, by borrowing, the government is deliberately borrowing to reduce the money in the hands of the banks. We'll be learning more about it. In the hands of the banks and also in the hands of the people. What should be the policy? Borrow when, come on, there is inflation. When I give money, to for income tax purposes, for example, I buy an NSE for 1.5 lakhs rupees. I will feel the pinch, isn't it? I cannot spend that 1.5 lakh. Like me, thousands and thousands of people cannot spend. Okay, that means government keeps the money. I lose my money for a period of time. Government has controlled inflation by managing. That is why it is called a demand side policy. A demand side policy. Now, where can the government borrow money? All these are internal. Government can also money from external agencies. Okay. External agencies, World Bank, okay. Germany, US, Japan, Korea. From anywhere government can borrow. So it can be internal borrowing and external borrowing. Internal borrowing is known as market borrowing. So all this side is, we call it market borrowing. Market, even though we are not market, this is known as market borrowing. External borrowing is from, now this is market borrowing, and some instruments that government, you already know this, I think, because financial management etc. you are studying, okay. Some such instruments like bond you can trade, okay, negotiable, you can trade, whereas national savings certificate etc. you cannot trade. I just wanted to say that government will float different types of instruments and securities in order to, come on, suck out the excess liquidity, suck out the excess money in the system. Okay, that is market loans, right? Then small savings. Now, small savings, because I like people like me, small people will have small savings, post office savings. Actually, these are all the methods of borrowing by the government. Okay, right. And this borrowing is done for stabilization. Then it becomes a deliberate policy of stabilization. It becomes a fiscal policy. Okay. Now, suppose the government feels there is a recession. Okay. Suppose the government feels there is a recession. What will the government do? Recession is a stage when effective demand is less. Okay. People like us don't have employment. Okay. Okay. We don't have employment and we don't have money. So what will the government do? Government will repay the debt. This repayment of the debt will give money to me. Okay. money is now coming into my pocket, and then I will spend it on, come on, goods and services. Okay, I will spend it for buying mobile phones, for constructing houses, for buying apples, for buying vegetables, right? Aggregate demand. Companies which have lent money to the government, when they get back, they will invest it, right? So here, what I mean to say is, government is using expenditure, tax, debt as a policy too, as a demand side fiscal policy. Demand. What is the government trying to manipulate? Demand for consumption, demand for investment. Purchases, net exports, everything can be manipulated. And you remember your AD curve, your aggregate demand curve, which you have done in your chapter 1. Your aggregate demand curve during recession will now go up. If you get back the loan, your aggregate demand will go up. If public expenditure goes up, your aggregate demand will go up. It is recession time, demand has to go up. This is unemployment equilibrium. This is full employment equilibrium. Now full employment equilibrium is attained. Are you with me? So government has achieved it by increasing. Suppose it is inflation. Come on. If it is inflation, you are already in full employment. People have a lot of demand. What will happen? Prices will rise. And so government wants to reduce your money. Government will borrow money. Budget. I think you have studied that also in Keynesian theory. A balanced budget multiplier. A balanced budget, a deficit budget. Now, a balanced budget. Whatever is collected as taxes from me, is what is spent. Government collects 100 million, spends 100 million. No effect on, aggregate demand. Because one component of aggregate demand is government as well. And so, whatever is leaked from the system in the form of taxes, it comes back to the system as injection. So, leakage is equal to injection. No, not much. No influence on income generation. Then, if it is a surplus budget, what is surplus budget? Government collects 100 million, spends only 50 million. Come on, 100 million demand is taken away. When government is collecting taxes, 100 million worth demand is taken away from the hands of people. Otherwise, people would have spent this 100 million instead of giving it to the government. Then government being very stingy, they spend only 50 million. That is a surplus budget. In our families, surplus budget is good. In the case of individual, surplus budget is good. But it is not good in the case of an economy because they have taken away our purchasing power, purchasing ability, aggregate demand. They have not put the back in the form of income. Definitely income will suffer. If you have a deficit, people get angry. Oh, you're spending more than your... But for a government, it is perfectly alright because government incurs a deficit and spends... What is deficit financing? Deficit financing is this. That is, government has only income of 100 billion. But government spends 150 billion. Where does this 50 billion come from? Come on. This 50 billion is the extra injection that government has done to the economy. This extra injection that government has done to the economy can be very positive. Can be very positive as far as the economy is concerned. because it will lead to increase in income. Right. Suppose the government borrows from the market. Now that you know the market theory, okay, suppose the government borrows from the market. Everything goes like a story. Okay, and that is given in your book. You can, if you have kept your books open, you will find it is all not mentioned in very detail. That is in page 285. Where will the government find money? Okay, where will the government find money? The government will find money from the market by increasing taxes. Suicidal, isn't it? Because the government is trying to spend money which it hasn't got received, and they are collecting it from us in the form of taxes. What will happen? Come on. My spending power, your spending power, we are all unhappy because our spending power is reduced. And the aggregate demand is declining here because of taxes. And what is the point in taking 50 billion from us and then spending 50 billion on us extra? There is no sense in that. And so that paragraph is very important, you read it. Then increased taxes will reduce disposable income. Then what can they do? It can be borrowing from other countries. It can be borrowing from different places. You will get it back, no? It is temporary. Okay, or it is monetization. Did you notice? Please note the word, that is monetization. Okay, monetization. Monetization is printing currency. Okay, printing currency to meet expenditure. If you don't have money at all, you can print currency, absolutely no problem now. But printing currency is again a very, very dangerous thing to do when you are near full employment. What will happen when you are near full employment? All the money will go and fall in the economy. Have you heard about it? Okay, money will fall on people, and people have more money, and it is nearly full employment. What will happen is all people will run to buy goods and services. Can goods and services increase? How is inflation coming? Tell me. Inflation is coming because the economy at full employment can only produce 200 billion. Something. Suppose it is ice cream, only that this economy is producing. Economy produces 200 billion and currency is also 200 billion. Then one ice cream is 1 rupee or dollar, whatever it is. No problem. Suppose the government increases tomorrow money supply to 400 billion. Overnight, they are printing money. You know, overtime printing money. The Nasik press is doing overtime and printing money. I am just exaggerating. What will happen? Money will come to us, isn't it? Supply to us. What will happen? All the 400 billion will fall on the available 200 billion. Can you increase the supply of goods overnight? Printing of currency can take place in a brief period of time, but supply cannot be increased. We need raw material, we need technology, we need infrastructure, and that is what is happening when there is inflation in a country. For example, too much money is falling on too few goods. Naturally, price of the ice cream will become 2 rupees. This is a simple explanation of inflation. Too much money chasing too few goods. So what should the government do? Come on, don't print currency like this. Don't borrow and spend too much because it will lead to inflation. Why inflation? I said no, pump priming will lead to inflation. It is like money being dropped from a helicopter. Lots of money is put into the economy. But can the good and service increase like that? It is not possible. Then what will happen? Inflation. Okay. Now, I think we are with what Keynes did, all the discretionary fiscal policies. Okay. Then I think you have done the theory of recessionary gap. You remember? recessionary gap, that is Keynesian. We are going to chapter 1 now. That is chapter 1, unit 2, which we have already done. There is a recessionary gap. Please go home and read because we don't have time to discuss it in detail. But still I feel I can draw a diagram and show you. I think when you are actually, from my point of view as a teacher for the past so many years, and one who loves economics for its intricacy, I am totally against all these calculations. I will tell you, this marginal propensity to consume calculation is something imaginary. And don't think that with the 500 billion and with a constant MPC, all that is assumed by Keynes. He is dead so early, isn't it? That is, after his theory, he did not live much. Now, sitting and calculating MPC is something in the air, something that does not really exist. Putting a number to that and then calculating, you lose the theoretical rigor. Okay, I asked many of my students about the intricacies of, what you have learned, but they know how to calculate. For example, YD is this much, what will happen to YD? Who's bothered about it? You just need to know in a sentence, that is, if disposable income is reduced, your expenditure will be cut. And then look at the stage of the economy. You should be able to look at the Reserve Bank of India figure and say, where are we heading? That is the type of economic study in our country. These calculations are bypassing knowledge. So don't you just, that any +2 student can do the calculation, isn't it? So I am totally against all these calculations, but I have no say whether calculation should be there or not, because I am nobody to say all that. But still I am telling you, when you are focusing too much on calculation and too little on the theoretical aspects, you are missing the detail. You cannot make decision based on, okay, calculation. Any 8th standard student can, you put a formula, solve it, find the answer, finished. It is easy for the teacher, easy for the students. But that is not economics, okay? So just my opinion, right? And so we studied about, the crux of Keynesian theory, okay? 45-degree line. What is aggregate supply? What is aggregate supply? What all the producers, the entire economy, X and T, that is plan to produce, anticipate. Okay, national income chapter which you have done is realized. Okay, this is planned. So we are studying theory. If this is the plan of people, and when equilibrium, that is, this is the output, actually aggregate output, okay, and your demand is equal to, this is your aggregate demand, whatever be the sector, 1 sector, 2 sector, 3 sector, whatever it may be. There's no one sector as such, okay, then this is equilibrium. What is the meaning of this equilibrium? It only means that whatever output is produced, 45-degree line, whatever is produced is sold. Two lines intersecting, their value are equal, isn't it? Aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Happy? There is no excess production, there is no production, and all that we study. It is equilibrium. But is this equilibrium good? That is a question. Okay. Now, if it happens that this is full employment level, okay, full employment level, right? If this is full employment level, definitely this is underemployment equilibrium. Underemployment equilibrium. Please learn your theory because I don't have time to. So what happens is there is a deflationary gap. Okay, there is you have done it in +2. Aggregate demand is not sufficient. Okay, aggregate demand is not sufficient. Aggregate demand should be this much. Okay, there should be a rise in aggregate demand. When aggregate demand rises, we will reach full employment equilibrium. Here at full employment, aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand. We say there is a recessionary gap. Please go home and read because it is unit 2. I don't have time. Right. Okay, there is a recessionary gap. What is that? Aggregate demand is not high enough to ensure full employment. Because people are not buying, producers are not producing. I mean, all producers, remember it's all total. Producers are not produce because people may not buy. When people don't buy, we don't produce. So I reduce the production. I can produce 100 million. The economy can produce 100 million. But we produce only 60 million. And people buy 60 million. And equilibrium is there. Are you happy? No. The society can enjoy 100 million output. But we are producing 60 million. We are buying 60 million. That is not welfare. Okay. So, equilibrium. Please note, equality of planned aggregate expenditure. This is planned aggregate expenditure based on the money in my pocket, money in your pocket, money in the pocket of all the people in the country. The aggregate planned expenditure and output need not take place at full employment level. There is lack of demand. We call it a recessionary gap. And then what should the government do? Very simple. You know the theory. Government should compensate this. Okay, you will be doing problems on that. Delta I, delta G. What will happen if delta G takes place? Government is entering as a spender. Government is compensating for the lack of expenditure on the part of people. And so, aggregate demand curve goes up. Okay, plus G, G with delta G, whatever it is. Aggregate demand curve goes up, and this is an occurrence during the contractionary phase. When will it happen? Deficiency in demand. Deficiency in demand take place during recession. And so during recession, the government spending should ensure that, okay, there is a lot of theory that is unplanned. Come on, you can go over. Respond by cutting production and employment. It's written in your book. Okay, right. If they produce this much, what will happen? I'll tell you in a very simple way. Suppose the industries are producing this much, what will happen? Unplanned accumulation or build-up of inventories. It means what they have produced, they are not able to sell. Let it be finished goods, let it be industrial components, let it be chemicals, let it be ceiling fans, anything, because people do not, deficiency in demand is there, inventories will accumulate. I look at my store, lots of goods, unsold inventories. And as a business person, what will I do? If I have unsold inventories, I will not produce further. I will ask my laborers, you can go take rest and come after 5 months. Or you don't come back at all. You know, the job cutting will take place. And what will happen? Production will be reduced. Unemployment will be there. Unemployment further leading to decrease in output, decrease in demand. That's what I said. So we have an underemployment equilibrium. Please go and read the theory. It is just one paragraph. It is given because of page limitations. Okay. And so, what is this deflationary gap? It is a measure of the extent of deficiency in aggregate demand. Okay, this much deficiency is there. Now who should enter? The government should enter with money, isn't it? The government should enter with money and raise the deficiency. That much of deficiency should be decreased. Now a simpler diagram is given in your book. You can open your book if you want and keep and write something, because All the diagrams, explanations are very frugal. That is little are given. If you give lots of explanations, the number of pages will increase. And that is also for small children, you give lots of explanation. So I will draw a very simple diagram. What should be? This is, come on, what is written in your book? It is written LAS. Please remember, Keynes stopped with short-run aggregate demand. This is the long-run aggregate, short-run aggregate supply. This is a long-run aggregate supply curve. After Keynes, so many developments came. So this is the long-run aggregate supply curve. What does it mean? This aggregate supply, that is denoted by, in your book, it will be Y2, I think. Okay, Y2. That is, this is what the economy can produce at full employment. In the long run, full employment, equilibrium. Okay, full employment is this much. That is what happened. How do you explain this? If it is moving to the right, it is over full employment. It will not happen. The society has resources only for this much aggregate supply. Okay, that is all the aggregate supply, and your output is your real GDP. This is actually real GDP. Please keep writing in your textbook itself. Real GDP is this much. Okay, now this is an easy way of drawing. There is an aggregate demand curve 1. There is an aggregate demand curve 2. There is an aggregate supply curve 1. Isn't it? Aggregate. There is an aggregate supply curve. There is a short run, yes, that is it. Short run aggregate supply curve 2 here, 1 and 2 as usual. Okay, this should pass. This should pass through this. Short run aggregate supply curve 1. Short run aggregate supply curve 2. Okay, technicalities you don't need. Why this is drawn like this? Now, did you notice that is the y-axis is given price level. Okay, price level. So this is actually a price output relationship. Okay, go home and see Keynesian theory, what is given on the y-axis, what is given on the x-axis, and compare it. Okay, it means that if prices are high, aggregate demand is less. If prices are more, prices are high, aggregate demand is less. If prices are more, aggregate demand is less. If prices are lower, aggregate demand is less. Okay. Now, this is, we are talking about short run. We haven't talked about long run. Okay. So, originally, SAS1, that is short run, aggregate supply curve 1 intersects with the short run aggregate demand curve. This is short run aggregate demand curve at this point E. And we have the price level. Definitely it is a demand and supply intersection. What is determined is price level. And this is given this price, it is, in your book it is Y1. So temporarily you find the aggregate demand is this much. Given the aggregate supply, the earlier diagram I drew, the same diagram in terms of price and real GDP, it is drawn. You cannot go to very high details of that. But anyway, please understand, this is the full employment aggregate supply. Aggregate supply is total output supplied in the long run. Okay. What about here? Come on, it is OY2, this much. But now the economy is having, come on, less than full employment, only this much income, whereas full employment income is this much. Two analyses are given, one is unnecessary but still it is given. Come on, what did our Adam Smith and our classical economists thought? Okay, I already said that if this happens, what will happen? Oh, some people will lose their job because deficiency in demand. They will come and say, we will work for lower wages. Suppliers will give at lower prices. Then cost will come down. Okay, supply curve represents cost. Okay, cost will slowly come down and supply curve will shift to the right, and automatically, okay, what will happen? We will reach here. From here E, we will reach here. Say for example, let us give it a name E1. This is definitely not going to happen, is what Keynes said. This is price wage flexibility. Okay, this is not going to happen. Then what did Keynes say? This is not going to happen. This price wage flexibility is not there. And so under full employment will, this is under full employment. If this is full employment, this is under full employment. Then what should the government do? Come on. Government should enter as an investor. Government should enter as a consumer. Government should spend money and put money, and then what happens? Aggregate demand, because government expenditure is a component of aggregate demand. Aggregate demand curve will shift from AD to A1. Where did it shift? See where it has shifted? It has shifted, and finally, what equilibrium is this? Full employment equilibrium. So this is fiscal policy. This is an expansionary fiscal policy. An expansionary fiscal policy is occurring when there is recession. This is recession under full employment equilibrium. When recession occurs, government expenditure should be increased, or government should go for an expansionary fiscal policy for combating. Please write down whatever you got, because not much explanation is given in the textbook. Okay, that is original underemployment equilibrium, right? Classical economists thought this is what is going to happen, right? That is, prices and wages will fall and cost falls and the supply curve will shift, and automatically all the unemployed people will next day get job, not next day, they will get jobs, and finally full employment. But this is not going to happen. According to Keynes, this is not going to happen because prices and wages do not become flexible. Then what should be doing? Government should come in with an expansionary fiscal policy, right? And so this is the diagram for expansionary fiscal policy. And the opposite is contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy is, there is a lot of economic activity, prices are spiraling, okay, prices are spiraling, and you find that people are all having lots of money, and then again government is also spending money, means the aggregate demand will very much increase, okay. So that is what is given. You can look into your book if you want. Here also you need to write a little bit. For that, go to page number. I'm slightly fast I am going because we need to finish this. 2.87. 8:15 I'll give you a break because I'll get the questions at 8. I'll check the questions at 8. Okay. Now look at this diagram. Okay. I'll draw the diagram. The economy is already at employment at Y. Same diagram. Aggregate demand curve 1, aggregate demand curve 2. That is here the difference is SAS2, SAS1. That's all the difference. Okay. Now please write a sentence there in your textbook itself, okay, or in your note, whatever it is. The economy is already at full employment level. The economy is already at full employment level. Why? Level of real GDP. Why? That sentence would add rigor to the analysis. The economy is already, yes, I have added that. Okay, the economy is already at the full employment level of real GDP. And now full employment is there. They expect, okay, they expect the aggregate demand to go to A2. Expect, please write it. And aggregate demand might shift from AD to AD2. It is based on information, based on data, based on production figures, based on purchasing managers index. Economy is heated up. We expect the aggregate demand to go up. Okay, we expect it to go up. What will happen? You know, this long run aggregate supply curve is at full employment level. Why F? Can you increase output because demand has increased? No. The economy is all resources available, all people who are willing to work available, they are all employed. That means, you remember our case of increasing the supply of money and the effect on ice cream. You just cannot increase the quantity of output. Then, suppose the demand is more. What is going to happen? What is going to happen is, come on, if this is going to happen, if aggregate demand rises, originally AD1 and SAS1, if they are equilibrium, you don't have to worry about all that. All that will automatically come to you. Then, suppose aggregate demand rises, come on, please remember this is planned, okay, over full employment. There is nothing like over full employment really existing. It is a strain on the economy. You cannot produce at over full because that is a maximum. Full employment is the maximum. Right. Now, what should the government do? Suppose it happens, suppose it is rising like that. What will happen is, come on, the cost will go up. Because prices have gone up. Did you notice this? Because people are running to buy goods, prices will go up. Prices will go up, wages will go up. And the supply curve will shift up. Okay? The supply curve will shift up and you find price will go up. New equilibrium is here. The price will go up. Very bad, isn't it? So, since it is full employment, output cannot increase like that. That is why it is not marked in your book. Okay, output cannot increase like that because this is anticipated. We write only if it is real. Okay, and what happens is prices will rise and there will be inflation. And so what should the government do? Okay, take all policies to bring it back. Actually, we should have in the notation. Okay, don't allow aggregate demand to go to AD2. You can make it like that. It was very difficult to put that arrow, right? You bring it back to AD1 because if demand goes to AD2, cost will rise, prices will rise and there is inflation. Why inflation? Because you cannot increase the aggregate supply, right? And so what should the government do? Try to bring back the aggregate demand to, come on, how is it possible? Reduce expenditure, raise taxes, go for contractionary fiscal policy. Okay, go for contractionary fiscal policy. Please revise your multiplier effect. Okay, multiplier effect portion. I will simply ask you a question like the question that can happen comes. Say for example, aligning it to this. Okay, there is a 500 million or Okay, there is a 500. Okay, let it be 500. There is a 500 million gap between current output and full employment output. So, which is the diagram? First diagram I drew, isn't it? There is a gap, that aggregate demand curve rising. There is a gap between current output and full employment. I hope you remember the original diagram. Okay, I'll draw it once more, or you can use the previous diagram, whatever it is. How much is expenditure is required? Okay, there is a 500 million 45 degree. That is, this is aggregate supply and this is your aggregate demand curve. Okay, this is under full employment and this is full employment. And this gap is 500. That is the meaning of 500 million gap between the current output. This is the current output and this is the full employment. Under full employment. Okay, then how much government spending is necessary to achieve full employment? If, then MPC should be known, isn't it? If MPC is equal to, put any value you like. If MPC is equal to 0.80, if MPC is equal to 0.80, what will be multiplier? 1 by 1 minus MPC, that is 5. Okay, right? Then what is the formula that you apply? That is required change, desired change in AD divided by the spending multiplier. Anyway, you can go home and do it. We have no time to do it now. And so we move faster to finish because we have to finish this. Otherwise, you know, this lag doesn't look nice, right? So we have fiscal policy for the reduction, for ensuring growth, long run economic growth. How can you ensure long run economic growth? By making better infrastructure. Okay, how can you ensure long run economic growth? All the tax that is collected from us, spend it on something else. No, it's not the way. Spend it on infrastructure, spend it on capital investment, spend it on increasing the potential of the economy, human capital formation. Make more chartered accountants, make more engineers, make more computer personnel, have more research. Okay, do aeronautical research, do this research, that research. Spend more money in building the basic financial, physical and other infrastructure. Then, how can you reduce inequalities? Very simple. Inequality is, you know, some people having more money and some people having less money. Take money from the rich people, progressive direct taxes system, more percentage, okay, from the rich people and spend it on the poor people so that the rich people will have less money. It is definitely there, but poor people enjoy the amenities of public goods, public provisions, free education, free health care or subsidized health care, subsidized travel, right? Progressive taxation. That is the money collected from the rich people. The pain they will feel will be less because their marginal utility of money is very. Suppose you are taxing Ambani a little more, he wouldn't mind, isn't it? But that 1 rupee from Ambani is very valuable for the poor person. Then, you know about indirect taxes, it can be differential. What is the meaning of differential? Different levels of taxes on different goods and services. Okay? Tax those inessential goods. But please remember, and when you are taxing, you should have a targeted, carefully planned public expenditure. Okay, you tax people and then spend for rich people. Spend it on making luxurious sports cars alone. Not going to do. Okay, you should have targeted spending program. That's a word that's given in your book. Targeted. You targeted people. You targeted groups. You targeted vulnerable population. Okay. Then giving them free subsidy, during COVID time, what happened is, different states were giving free food. Then we have targeted public distribution system, 2 rupees per kilogram of rice. Okay, now I talk to my neighbors and all, people still tell me they have lost their jobs. Not my neighbors, people who I see around, they have lost their jobs, but there is no hunger because rice is available at 2 rupees per kilogram. There is no hunger. When there is no hunger, there is no riot. Okay, when there is no hunger, the welfare of people. Okay, medical care, health care, education, infrastructure, then pensions, widows' pension, social security, sickness benefits, hospitalization, then public production of education, public production of healthcare. So if you are saying, there will be thousands and thousands of things that we can talk about what government can do. But please remember, high rates of taxation. You remember in the last class I used to say, people react to incentives. People react to incentives. People respond, not react. Respond to incentives. Okay. Now, whenever a positive incentive is given, they respond positively. When negative incentives are given, they react negatively. Okay. So, very high rates of taxes. Okay. In 1970s, when I was a student, we used to have a debate whether the tax rate should be reduced, and that debate, I remember the highest tax rate was as high as 72%. Imagine, will people work, make 1 rupee and give 72 paisa to the government? Who is interested? I can sleep at home, isn't it? So very high rates of taxes is a very high disincentive for work. People won't work if the taxes. That's why we have been progressively reducing the taxes slab, etc. Okay, with that, I think I must clear your doubts now, or shall I discuss a little more and then go to your doubts? Okay, let me check your doubts. If it is too many, I will take it after. Oh, very few doubts. I am happy. I think I am all right. I think I am communicating. I don't know whether my okay. How much time does it generally take from recession to boom? Very good question. The trade cycle is totally unpredictable. Duration is unpredictable. If the government is not doing anything, or if whatever the government does is not effective, recession will last longer and it will become a depression. Okay, recession will last longer and it will become a depression. This has happened in 1930s. That is why the positive role of the government, whenever there is a recession, the government will intervene. Government has to intervene. Otherwise, the economy will go here. Okay, and so something about, there is no proper theory of trade cycles in economics. There are more than 20 theories of trade cycles. Some is monetary phenomenon. I think business cycles, those who have done foundation, there is a chapter on business cycles. In that it is said, there is no predictability with respect to when it will come, how many years it will last. Sometimes it will come every 10 years. Sometimes it comes in 80 years. You do not know, right? And so that is a peculiarity of recession. That is, how much time does it generally take? There is no uniform time. There are some recessions which got okay in 3-4 years. Some recessions lasted 10 years. Okay. Then, and will this period differ in case of COVID? Because COVID effect is not a recession, this is a pandemic, and this recession is caused by circumstances which are beyond our control because of lockdown, because of loss of production, because of loss of job and all that. And lots of articles are coming. I don't think we have any theory so far about it. Non-discretionary an example, non-discretionary, like US economy. Okay, yeah, non-discretionary, yes, taxation system. Lots of research, taxation research is going on. Lots of research on public expenditure is going on. Should this be done? Should that be done? Okay. And the very structure of taxes is framed like that. You will calculate taxes beautifully, but you have to know the theory, because even before the budget, before the budget is prepared, what happens is, who is this acting? Asking, okay, Saifat Das. Vandana Singh is the next question. Maharashtra. This is from West Bengal. Very good. Non-discretionary. Non-discretionary. Any automatic stabilizers? That is, what did I say? Lots of research is going on, and the tax structure. Before Indian budget is made, who is asked first? The Institute of Chartered Accountants. What type of tax changes you propose? And every year before the budget, Institute of Chartered Accountants give, these are the policy suggestions. But since you do economics, and if you read extensively on economics, you will have better policy perspective. Because, balancing the taxation and expenditure, it is a Herculean task. In US economy also, all US economy articles, actually we are following all what is happening in Western countries. In the US, the tax structure is very much like that. Okay, that is, it has to work automatically. But still they have to go for monetary policy, quantitative easing. Please remember, this is only one part of the policy. We will be going to monetary policy very soon. So it is a mixture of monetary policy, fiscal policy, automatic stabilizers, We try all medicines when you get disease, isn't it? It is like that, the economy. It's again trial and error based on a lot of theories. Okay. Same as the next question is from, Vandana, from who speaks. Same is in current scenario due to this pandemic. Yeah, unemployment, very good observation. Unemployment is raised so much. Yes, the government should be providing necessary food, necessary minimum wages, minimum amount of money for expenditure. Otherwise, definitely inflation will come, a stagflation will come, stagnation will come, industrial output will be reduced. We see in the newspaper that car sales has picked up. That's all very strange, isn't it? Car sales have picked up. Normally, whenever there is a recessionary trend, people wait for prices to be lower. I can always postpone changing my car, isn't it? Thinking that, okay, some incentive will come, 1 lakh less for a car. Waiting for that. But for some reason or the other, it has picked, means it is good. It is a good sign, right? Anyway, happy. Shall we go? Should I give you a break? Not necessary, isn't it? We go to limitations of fiscal policy, because I am determined to finish 2 more pages. I will finish. Okay. Right? Because we should not be starting with this in the next class. What are the limitations? Be very, very attentive. The first, you can keep your book open if you want to write anything you like. Okay. There are different types of lag. L-A-G. Lag. Okay. That is, if one child is not studying in school, teenager is not doing good in school, it takes some time for parents to recognize that he's not studying, isn't it? That is the recognition lag. The economy is so huge. Instantly data are not available. There is no computer for the economy to monitor the economy and see the changes in the economy. Every moment it is monitored. Especially a country which is huge in size, it is very difficult to recognize when there is a problem. So, when the problem has occurred, the recognition comes only after. By the time the problem would have, it is like COVID, okay? Like you have slight throat pain and all that. It takes time to recognize, this oxygen is less for you and all that. It takes time. That is the recognition lag. Once recognition is there, you understood, okay, this is problem, we are going into recession. But you have to make a decision. In any country, there is a huge set of administrative machinery, research, all those people, decision lag. It is very difficult to make a decision. And it takes time to make a decision. And this is very serious, right? Now, even if you decide, it will need an assent from the parliament, lower house, upper house, president, then 2 people will go to the court, 10 people will fight on the road. What will happen? Implementation. You cannot implement. That is why many decisions are not implemented for so many years. And even if you implement, the impact lag, that is, there is a period of time, that is the moment you take paracetamol, the moment you take a particular medicine, you can't immediately see the result. Okay, it takes time, 3-4 hours at least. So like that, right. In Western literature, we call it, data lag. Very difficult to get the data. That's why 2019 data only is available, isn't it? Of course, Purchasing Managers Index are not available monthly, but still there is a data lag. There is a wait and see lag. Okay, let's say wait and see whether the fever will automatically, sometimes fever gets cured automatically. Like that, we'll wait and see. Then there is a legislative lag. These are all extra points. Legislative lag in making rules. Then there is a transmission lag. The legislation should transmit into the population, isn't it? And then effectiveness lag. Okay. Do you think these lags will weaken the fiscal policy? Yes. Okay, it will. Then do you think government can build a bridge and because it is inflation, stop the bridge right away? Build a highway and stop the highway because it is a huge investment plan, billions. Can it stop halfway because it is inflation? No, possible. It is very difficult to change the taxation, the spending, okay, because there will be very, very large number of conflict. Maybe people in South India want it, okay, people in North India do not want it. People in North India want it, but people in South India. So, different conflicts are there, and different levels. For the state government will conflict with the central government. And one most important problem is, for example, when you change the tax, government will say this is only for 1 year. Okay? This is only for 1 year. This says is only for 1 year. I don't mind paying for 1 year because after 1 year I know my income will be same. So people make their decisions not actually based on these temporary tax changes, but based on your permanent income. Permanent income is you have a notion about your income, isn't it? Your income. So you are from such and such a background and this is the spending capacity. Given this family's income, given this generations we were spending like this, and we have got such apartments for it's your permanent income. It is not the tax alone that decides your okay. Then one practical difficulty, that is the last point I wanted to tell you is, public works cannot be changed. And again, it's very difficult because it's very difficult to manage an economy. That it is very simple. It is more difficult than passing a CA examination. Okay, for collectively passing a CA examination, it is very, very difficult. And then we go to the last, very important, very usually asked question and then stop. Okay, that is the theory of crowding out. I will draw it so that it becomes very simple. Okay, it is just two or three sentences, but it is very important. Okay, government needs money. What? Very slippery. Okay. The government wants to spend. Government wants to, this is government, it wants to increase its expenditure. It borrows money from the market. You know the term market. Okay. It borrows from the money from the market, from people like us, okay, from institutions or different entities. We would all like to lend to government. Why? We have a preference for lending to government because it is sovereign. And usually government can afford to borrow at a higher rate of interest than, Now, what happens is, when money is taken away from me, when government is borrowing, actually money is taken away. This is my money and a part of my money is taken, not as much definitely, a part of my money is taken away by government. Then don't you think my investment, if I am a corporate, my expenditure on investment for a corporate and for individuals, my expenditure on consumption, money is taken from me also, okay, that will be reduced. Common sense, isn't it? The increase in government expenditure, only thing is that if it is borrowing, then again, if government does a work, my scope for doing that work is reduced, isn't it? Government is building bridges, that is increase in government spending. What will happen? The government is procuring so much money from the market and available money in the market is only this much and government is coming and borrowing at higher rate of interest. What will happen is rate of interest will increase. Okay, government will sell treasury bills, government will sell bonds, okay, 6% bond, all of us will go buy, 8% bond, all of us will go buy, 9% bond, they're happy to give. So the available money, all the money available from the people is taken by, a substantial part is taken, demand for loanable funds, lendable funds from all of us. It is taken by the government. Government has come and accessed the market, okay, borrowed money. And what is the effect of that? Interest rate increases. And if you are an investor, what is your motivation when interest rate increase? You don't want to invest as much as what you were investing earlier because your cost of borrowing has gone up, okay? And so, this is the underlying assumption. When government expenditure increases, okay, government borrows money from the market, rate of interest will increase and private investment will come down. Okay, private people are now very shy to invest at a higher rate of interest. And do you think government expenditure can now increase income? Because government has increased at 10% expenditure, that 10% expenditure is reduced from private parties. If there is an increase of 10% government expenditure, there is a decrease of 10% private expenditure because interest rate has gone up. Government is massive. It has come and increased the rate of interest. And so it is deterrent or it is adverse to these investing people. So, any increase in aggregate spending because of government, because of G, okay, is offset, is cancelled out because of the decline. Okay, increase in government expenditure, that much of decrease in private expenditure means there is no effect for government expenditure. Because private investors are very sensitive to interest rate change, isn't it? The moment interest change, what happens is investment will be lacking. Okay, so that will, economy's ability to correct itself declines. So this phenomenon, that is government spending money using resources domestically. Okay, using financial and other resources that would otherwise be used by private people like me, like you. Okay, then that will crowd out. Did you get the new term? That is the meaning of, given in your book as crowding out. Crowd out. What is the meaning of crowd? Suppose you are standing in a room, a lot of people come into the room. What will happen? You are crowded out. You will be chucked out of the room, isn't it? You are traveling in a bus. Lots of people get in and you are chucked out of the bus. It is like that. The government is so huge and massive. It is doing all those activities by raising interest rate. That is a theory actually. By raising interest rate, what happens is private parties cannot invest. And then any increase in government expenditure is offset or cancelled out by decrease in. This is a big problem. So this is a real problem also. So this will hurt long-term economic growth. Okay, then there are political issues. For developing countries, tax structure is very narrow. Indian tax structure is very narrow. You go to the US, you pay much more taxes because India people are poor and disparities in income is there. Lots of tax evasion is there and lots of jewelry buying, gold buying is there in India. And another problem within India in the case of fiscal policy is, we have this barter system that is non-monetized transactions. Then another problem, that national income calculation problems itself. That is, you won't get data at all. People don't keep account. There is a lot of corruption. There is a lot of misdirected policies. And these are all the problems in respect of fiscal policy. And so crowding out is a very important point. I'll tell you one more example. It's the example given in your book. Even though somebody commented, you cannot use that example for crowding out. That is, suppose all school children are given computers. The Co-op government, Tamil Nadu government, etc. did that. I don't know which other governments who did that. So don't you think that is going to take away the possibility of supplying computers by private people? Yes. It is actually, this is a job which could easily be done. It is given freely by the government. A job that could easily be done by private people. When government enters and does it, it is, the private people are losing their opportunity. Okay, but that is not crowding out exactly. This monetary basis of crowding out due to increased interest rate is the real crowding out. Okay, now thank you so much. I'm happy I could finish it because I didn't want to go. That is, one unit should be one class like that. Okay, thank you so much. I hope you have understood. Please go home and read. I think if you need any, I have sent the PowerPoints. Then I have sent some extra notes on fiscal policy during COVID. That may not be included for examination, but still, if you simply, just one reading, you will make you understand that, government is positively doing things. Okay, that at least now you have understood that government is doing it, and that makes a substantial difference on the economy, on the output of the economy, employment of the economy. Okay. Thank you so much and goodbye. See you tomorrow, 6 o'clock. We go to the next chapter, that is on money. That is also slightly abstract, but that is more interesting. I mean, lots to study for you and less to teach for me. That is the chapter on money. And monetary policy is very, very interesting and very, very important. Thank you so much for your patient listening and see you tomorrow. Thank you.